All right, Tuck CDL. So, quick shout out to Safe Truck Parking. If you're looking for a safe place to park, contact these boys over there at 972-391-5610, and they will hook you right up. I also have a shout out to a Mike Porter. Last week when we were talking on the show, I had mentioned, hey, write into us and let us know what you're munching on out there. What are your snacks, your favorite snacks? And he actually wrote a really nice long letter compared to what everybody else sent us.
Okay.
I mean, not that everybody else is bad. You guys are all great. I mean, I'm just saying he really sent a really nice letter. So I just wanted to kind of read that real quick. Shout out to Mike. He says, hello, Troy. Hope y'all are doing well.
No Ruth Ann? Just Troy?
That's it. Just me.
Wow, Mike. Okay, go ahead.
You okay?
I'll get better.
Hey, Mike dissed you.
He did diss me, man.
And anyways, no big deal. Hope y'all are doing well after the hurricane. My name is Mike. I haul explosives out of South Carolina. You were asking about drivers' eating habits on the road, and I thought I would tell you mine. He says, I started driving in 1996. I used to love the Iron Skillet restaurant and spent a ton of money eating on the road. Everybody loved the Iron Skillet. Mm-hmm. And these were honestly, he's after everybody's heart there that is old school. Mm-hmm. Because you know what I mean? Like you had all those country kitchens and Iron Skillets and all the restaurants where you can go in and get a stack of pancakes, eggs and home fries, or if you were at lunch, you can get like a roast beef sandwich or a chicken fried steak, all that stuff. Now it's like McDonald's garbage. But anyways, he says, nowadays, everything is fast food. Back when I started driving, unless you had an ice in a cooler, the only electric coolers kept food only 30 degrees below the outside temperature. I now have a refrigerator in the truck that has a little freezer that can make ice. I run mainly up 81, up to Connecticut sometimes. I usually stop at Walmart in Woodstock, Virginia, at the beginning of the week. I stock up on drinks and get fruits, sandwich stuff, snacks, or frozen meals. It's a lot cheaper than eating out on the road. I would have saved a lot of money had I did this when I was younger. Yeah, but then you would have missed out on the skillet, man. Anyways, he says, about a year ago, I was eating canned food like ravioli because it was easier just to open a can. Then one day I went to an urgent care at home because I had strep throat. When they checked my blood pressure, it was high. He says, I've never had high blood pressure. It was from eating all the canned food. Mm-hmm. He said, I switched to things like chicken salad sandwiches and other more healthy options and haven't had any more blood pressure problems. So
awesome. That's
a really good plug for guys that may be unhealthy on the road, Ruth Ann, mm-hmm. and they're eating out of a can. Because in our house, there is no such thing as canned food.
No.
We refuse. He says, now I rarely buy anything in the truck stops because I stock up at Walmart. Truck stops are just a fuel stop for me. Y'all take care. I enjoy listening to the podcast every week. So shout out to Mike Porter. And, thank you for writing in and telling us that. And the only other thing that I caught that he said he was eating, I think he said lunch meats, didn't he?
I think he said sandwich fixings.
Oh, yeah, you're right. It says sandwich, stuff, snacks, or frozen meals. Okay, so yeah, I apologize. So drivers, that are out there on the road, just a quick piece of advice. Lunch meats, which are processed foods, it's like the number one go to hell, do not ever eat it from every cardiologist in the United States. Mm-hmm. They all say, do not eat. I mean, because you ever look at like when you're looking at the ham in the lunch counter, it's like this perfect square. And you're like, okay, it didn't come off the pig that way. So it's really just all processed stuff pressed together. And then you get what it is, loaded with sodium and all kind of chemicals. And to be honest with you, it is really bad for you. Lunch meats deli lunch meats. You might think that it's good for you, even if you go like the boar's head. They say is heart healthy.
Yeah.
They really are not. I mean, honestly,
It's better. It's like that smidgen bit better than the normal part of it because they put less sodium in it.
right. It's like saying if you want to get shot in the leg, just use a 22 and not a 45.
Don't go for the kneecap. Go for below.
Yeah, I mean, you're still getting shot and you're still eating lunch meat. So forget that, okay? Guys, thank you, Mike, for writing in, and we totally love it when you guys write in. So shout out to Mike and shout out to everybody else that, sent us some stuff this week. Moving on. Let's take a quick break and then we will get right into it. Truck Parking Club is a network of instantly reservable daily and monthly truck parking locations throughout the U.S. Truck Parking Club helps connect truckers to truck parking locations throughout the U.S. via truckparkingclub.com. Our networks is made up of property owners that have locations adequate for truck parking to list on the platform. This includes trucking companies, storage companies, CDL schools, trailer leasing companies, real estate investors, truck parking operators, and more. Go to truckparkingclub.com today.
Attention trucking companies and truck drivers. If you need help with cash flow, we've got help on the way. Turn to Tab Bank, the bank that knows trucking. Tab Bank has been in the business of helping truck drivers and trucking companies with their cash flow needs for 25 years. It's just that simple. It's what they do, but they don't stop there. Tab Bank helps grow your business with their invoice, factoring, and banking services. What a plus that is. Before you book your next load, play it safe and contact Tab Bank to get their help with your factoring needs. Tab Bank helps determine the credit worthiness of your customers as well as billing and collection efforts on invoices that you factor with them. Let the experts at Tab Bank get you cash quickly for the loads you deliver. Again, it's what they do. Visit tabbank.com/talkcdl to learn more. That's tabbank.com/talkcdl. Tab Bank member FDIC.
If you're a driver looking for a new trucking job, check out NCI. NCI offers the following: new Kenworth T680s, competitive wages, solo, team, and students welcome, plus a full benefit package for you and your family. Check them out today at 888-311-7076. That's 888-7076. And tell them Talk CDL sent you. Drivers, if you're looking for a local, home, everyday driving job, apply with Carter Lumber today. They have positions for Class A and Class B local drivers. They can take experienced drivers, students, and non-CDL drivers. With over 160 locations, chances are they have a position for you. So go to carterlumber.com/talkcdl and apply today. Again, that's carterlumber.com/talkcdl. Thank you. Okay, coming up, I've got a survey, and it's a pretty cool survey with truckers and carriers. And so I'm actually going to be titling this Truckers Survey or Truckers Issue Survey or something to that effect. That's going to be the main thing. But first, I'd like to start a conversation about Meth Man.
Meth Man?
Meth Man. I mean, it's an interesting
Meth
article.
Man like Mothman?
No, Meth Man like methamphetamine. Yeah. It kind of, it's like, I'll tell you what, I'm looking at a picture of a trailer that was just dropped in the middle of the road. You know what I mean? Like not flipped over, just unhooked and left on a double line road. In fact, here, you can see it. See? In fact, I'll even show the audience. If I can. Was that you or me?
That was you, babe.
Was it? Well, I'll have to mute this thing. So anyways, listen to this article. It's kind of cute. I wanted to just give this guy. Maybe should I do a shout out to Meth Man?
Why not?
I got to be honest. It was intriguing, and it really goes to show you that meth and any other thing in your life doesn't mix. Especially driving a tractor trailer. But I would say, listening to this story, when you're doing a lot of meth, it probably doesn't really work out with anything. I mean, why the hell? Anyways, it says a truck driver admitted to ingesting meth before a series of minor crashes that ended in him hiding in a barn. It gets 10 times worse. Listen to this. It says the series of events occurred on Wednesday morning, October 16th in Ellsworth County, Ohio. According to the news, it says truck driver Markel Bufford initially crashed his tractor trailer into a concrete barrier at the Truck World truck stop in Jackson Township, before driving away into Ellsworth Township. Buford then detached his trailer and tried to leave in the middle of the road, but crashed into a ditch near the corner of Palmyra Road and State Route 45. It's funny. It's so funny when they try to get away, right? Somehow, even if they're not being chased, they somehow crash because, and I guess meth must make you paranoid, because it sounds like he got paranoid and thought maybe someone was chasing him.
Mm-hmm.
It said, it said, Buford then abandoned his wrecked rig, leaving behind a passenger and 2 dogs.
A passenger.
A witness.
And 2 dogs.
Now, let me ask you a question. If it was you and I, and let's just say we were trucking, you and I, right? And there I am doing meth. I mean, I don't even know, is it like pills or needles or a little line, whatever, snorting up your nose. And I'm all methed up, right? First off, would you even appreciate my driving?
No.
Like after I crashed into a concrete barrier, would you be like, because you nag me if I speed too much to begin with.
Mm-hmm. I do.
Right. So I can't even imagine me speeding while on meth and you sitting there all calm. It wouldn't happen, would it?
No.
No. Okay. So then I get all weird. I jump out in the middle of the road. I pull on my air brakes. I get out and I unhook the glad hands and I crank it down and I get out, right? And then we wreck, right? Trying to get away. We end up in a ditch or something, right? And then there you are in the ditch with the dogs. We got
I'm holding my dog here.
Exactly. We got a Boston Terrier and a little Schnauzer. There you are with the boy and the girl. And I'm like, I got to go, babe. See you.
I would have lifted up my dogs and I'd say, can you pull the rope quick? Because I would have either hung you or I would have tied up all of us and made it look like you kidnapped us, because I want nothing to do with what you just did.
I'd be like, good luck, baby. I mean, it's unbelievable. Now, do you think she'll forgive him and take him? Meth heads do that, right? For real. Now, what if she's a meth head too?
See, that's what I was thinking. I mean, you can't usually just have one without having both.
Do you remember Chris, like the guy that used to be part of Johnny Acid's family, and he was driving for a big giant reefer company that's got red tractors, and they're out of Salt Lake City. Do you remember him telling the story? Now, he was serious. Him and his girlfriend, who was also a meth head, they were going across country on, doing meth and heroin. Remember that? Mm-hmm. And he was telling me how, he couldn't stop, and he was driving and he was fine. He didn't have any accidents on the drug, but he was literally driving for I think he did 9 months with them or something. And he was doing it. I mean, and she was doing it, which is kind of crazy. So my guess is if he calls her up and just says, hey, I'm sorry, will you take me back? Probably not going to happen. But if he shows up with a bag of meth, you think she'll forgive him?
I don't know.
I mean, honestly, we're making light of it, but insanity. It said police discovered meth inside the cab of Buford's truck during their investigation, and even obtained a confession from Buford stating that he had ingested meth prior to the series of events. Buford is currently facing an OVI and felony drug possession charges.
What's OVI?
Operating a vehicle intoxicated, something like that.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I just never heard it really said as far as OVI.
There's OUIs, OVIs, DUIs, DWIs. It's bottom line is you're driving wasted. And he failed, obviously, the test, I'm sure. And I would say that's all we have to say about that one. Moving on. Yeah, I mean, it is kind of interesting, but how about this one? An interesting article I read in, it was some paper. I mean, no, I think it was a Texas paper I was reading it out of. North Texas truck yards are seeing an increase in thefts involving roofing shingles. Tractor trailer. Now get this. It's an interesting article. And I never thought, like a lot of times they target like electronics and, things that you would think are high dollar. And I'm thinking maybe because of all the hurricanes.
That's what I was just thinking.
Right. Because what's the first thing to go in a hurricane?
Shingles.
Shingles, man. Your roof. People lose their roof. It says over the past month, 4 18-wheelers in the last 1 month, 4 tractor trailers loaded with roofing shingles have been stolen. The crimes happened at secured yards in Midlothian and Farmers Branch. Those affected believe they were victims of an organized theft ring in North Texas. So it's like
a secured lot.
You think about it. I think of The Sopranos and all those mob movies where they show the trucker coming across the Brooklyn Bridge or something, and they stop him and they pull him out, punch him around a little, and they take his load and then they go sell it, and they got like furs and all kind of stuff in the back. But because it's saying,
can you see he watches mob movies?
But it's saying organized, crime ring, and that's basically. And I'm not saying it's all Italians doing it.
No, there's other nationalities that are just as crooked as the Italians.
I mean, I'm Italian. That's why, I can pick.
He likes to pick on them.
So, long-time operators in the trucking industry believe there is an organized theft ring in North Texas, stealing flatbed 18-wheelers that are hauling roofing shingles. Since September, at least 4 big rigs have been stolen. Now, they didn't just steal like the load. They went in and, I guess, fired up the truck and just started rocking, man. Just pulled out in the middle of the night, and they were all loaded with roofing shingles. They got them on video doing it, and they're saying that the load is worth about $130,000 to $150,000. So it says the trucks were parked in secured yards, and these drivers obviously thinking that their tractor and trailer is going to be safe, their livelihood is going to be safe and secured. And you have these thieves that come along and take the whole truck, the trailer, and the load of shingles. And so, I really wanted to just say, we got an alert here. If you're a company that's hauling shingles, and I would imagine that there's probably extra loads of shingles now that they're manufacturing and that are going to be coming here to Florida, to different areas. And you are a target right now. So I would tell you that somehow, some way, you better try to make your truck and trailer secured if you're parking somewhere. What I would do in these times, Ruth Ann, if I was dispatch, I would probably not have the driver sitting in a yard somewhere or at home. I'd have him make sure that load gets delivered before he goes home. Like if it's, again, we don't know the situation, but it sounds probably like, okay, they picked up a load and then they dropped it in the truck and the trailer in a yard. It could even be at a terminal for all we know. And then when you leave a fully loaded tractor and trailer, a couple things are going on. I would tell you, number one, those thieves are probably following you when you're coming from where these loads are being picked up. Just realistically, that's somebody's following you. Or B, you are, there's somebody on the inside. Our camera went. That's why I no idea what happened to that camera.
It didn't want to see you anymore. It flipped, it turned its back on you.
Yeah, look at that. Wow.
His camera, his stand literally went and took it to the other side and like is shooting the wall. It's like, I don't even want to look at you anymore, dude.
Yeah.
It didn't like the meth head. It didn't like that one at all.
Yeah. But anyways, I just really what I wanted to do. Camera's back. I mean, hopefully it works. Might be low on battery. because it's on a gimbal. That's why. But anyways, the people that are hauling shingles, you are the newest target that thieves have figured out. We can make a lot of money when we steal your entire load. So trucking companies, beware. And like I said, I probably would start making the logistics of it to where it's picked up and then taken to where it has to go, and not sitting in a yard somewhere because A, thieves are following your driver, or B, somebody's on the inside that is connected to the thieves.
That's usually what it is.
Well,
there's always a connection.
There could be.
Well, they're taking the truck and the trailer. It's not like they're like breaking into the trailer and snapping the lock or something. They're taking the tractor too. Okay. I mean, they're taking the whole load, and they know what it is.
Well, Ruth Ann is positive the driver's in. I wouldn't say the driver's in on it, but you know what? Let's give the driver the benefit of the doubt and go ahead and say they're probably following.
More, honestly, it could also be that it's like a friend of the driver's, like someone that overheard him talking, and the driver's not, in on it. He was just innocently speaking to one of his buddies, like, man, I'm taking nothing but a lot of shingles lately because of these victims that are up in, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida. All these victims are getting their roofs redone, and I'm just doing nothing but hauling shingles. And their friend or the person that overheard them has now got their eye on them. They're watching them.
The fix is in.
Mm-hmm. So he's innocently a victim there.
My Goombas. John Gotti's great-great-grandson is in North Texas now. Anyways, moving on. Can we move on? Oh, look at you yawning for the camera.
Moving on.
Okay. So this electric semi thing, and that there are different states and places are pushing for, California being a big one, New York also being a big one, and they're wanting this zero emission thing going on. Okay. In a time where people are running from electric cars and trucks, and mainly the main reason people are running from electric vehicles, okay, are the charging stations. You can't charge them. And when it comes to semi trucks, New York had this deadline of 2025.
Really?
2025, they wanted at least, I'm going to read it, but from what I'm reading, it looks like they wanted 1 out of between 4 and 8 trucks, they wanted to be electric. Now listen, I got a question I want to ask here. It says, come January, manufacturers. Now, this is the truck makers are being forced to produce more electric semis, right? It says, if they don't, they won't be able to sell the traditional diesel ones. The problem is no one wants to buy the electric rigs just yet. This is coming out of New York, the state of New York. All right, I want to just make that clear. It says here's what it's called. The Advanced Clean Truck Regulations are set to go in effect in 2025. The requirement adopted by the Department of Environmental Conservation in 2021 requires a percentage of the trucks sold in New York to be zero-emission vehicles, depending on the classification of the truck. Somewhere between every 1 in every 4 to 8 vehicles have to be zero-emission before you can get a waiver to sell the current diesel trucks, explains Dan Penska, Vice President of Kenworth Northeast. Dealers across the state will simply not survive the impact of the current act timeline, says Kendra Hems, president of the Trucking Association of New York. Not only does that affect the livelihood of hundreds of workers across the country, but will be significantly disrupt the supply chain. Without intervention, the act regulation will drive up costs and limit the trucking industry's ability to deliver New Yorkers' goods as efficiently and quickly as possible. Penska says while his team is able to sell electric trucks, there is currently there currently isn't a market for them because of cost, range, and infrastructure. Now, here, listen to this. It says, in today's world, a tractor trailer only goes about 200 miles on a full charge. A diesel truck can go 600 miles a day, about the regular limit. It says, for example, a truckload of groceries going from Rochester to Albany, today a driver can make it there and back in less than 10 hours. That's in a diesel truck. But in an electric truck, a driver can get to about Utica before he needs to charge it. It says he'd have to sit there for an additional 6 to 8 hours to charge the battery. At that time, these guys only get a 10-hour, they have their 10-hour rule. So then they would have to what? Park the truck and stay overnight because it took them forever to charge the damn thing. Mm-hmm. It says, and be able to drive to Albany, unload his truck, and then do it all over again on his way home. So he wouldn't even make it back without having to be able to.
No, he wouldn't.
He'd have to charge it out, going out, and then charging it back. It's turning into a 2-day trip, which, of course, that's more man hours. And you'd have to pay the trucker, or you're not going to get truckers to do it. So now all your wages got to go up. And therefore, when wages go up, we already just seen when they started the $12 to $15 an hour minimum wage, what happened there? It drove what up?
Everything. Every single thing got driven up. All the food, all the gas, all the products, period.
Yeah, it says then there's the matter of whether there's an actually anywhere in public for these trucks to charge. Hem says there isn't a single heavy-duty charging station on the thruway, which is 90. Interstate 90.
So there's no charging stations there.
87 also is considered thruway, but 90 going across New York is what they call the thruway. So there's not even a charging station on there. So that's another reason why, and there you go, drivers and everybody. If you really want to get investing in the future, start investing in charging stations. I'm going to tell you something. You can't really go wrong if you get with the right charging stations because it is going to go up. It's just right now everybody's running from electric vehicles because of these things. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, Tesla's got the market cornered. Tesla, believe it or not, has 1 million charging stations everywhere. Like my buddy, I've seen 1 million of them. I just don't know if they have the semi-truck charging station set up. And again, we go back to what he just said. You're looking at 6-8 hours to get a full charge on a tractor trailer.
That's honestly, that's ridiculous. Now, I have an idea.
What is it?
If tractor trailers now, what we have now, deals with strictly all the over the road, but once you hit that city limit, it drops its trailer, and a little electric one person, a little electric one comes out and does all the city running, like all the little stuff right there in town. That way, the drivers don't have to do all the little city stuff. They could just strictly do all the long miles. What do you think that would do?
See, I believe right now, honestly, even like your electric cars, they're great for running around town, like you just said, not going too far. Okay. So personally, I think that's a way better idea on your local routes. And I would even tend to think that they're going to find problems. How are these batteries not only going to take you on range, how are they going to hold up? I haven't heard anybody really asking that. We both know anything battery operated, after you use it for so long, it just isn't the same. Look, we have Mac computers, and after about 2 years of not using the plug, you have to use the plug all the time or you lose your charge. It doesn't even, like my computer and your computer doesn't even hold a charge long. So the question also goes back to, are these batteries going to hold up under the strenuous conditions of hauling 80,000 pounds? So nobody even knows that. See, my question is, what are these truck manufacturers also guaranteeing trucking companies that are being forced or asked to buy these battery operated trucks if in 2-3 years from now they went from being able to go 200 miles to only 100 miles on a charge? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I heard lately where some of them were getting 300 to 400 miles, 500. But what's going to happen in 6 months, a year, 2 years, when they are really that battery is taking a beating, especially when you're in your big rigs are in the mountains.
Yeah.
I think you're going to find that there's going to be a lot of people getting screwed, and losing money over the next so many years. And if I was like, say, a big trucking company, okay, like JB Hunt, for example, and I don't know the deal they made. JB's not stupid. They didn't get where they're at by being stupid. Wouldn't you want to ask the battery operated makers, hey, what's my guarantee in 2 years this is going to hold up?
Yeah, I would want to have a contract of some sort together saying, hey, my investment's I want to still have, now they might have something in the contract that says there's going to be, 10, 20% decrease in the battery sustaining ability or whatever. They're always going to have that as far as something decreasing.
Mm-hmm.
But you want to be able to say, okay, if it's going to be decreasing over a certain amount of time, a depreciation value of some sort, what are you going to this is an extremely high amount of money that you're making me invest into something because you're forcing me to do it. What are you going to give me back on it? Now, if they have these tractors, our good old reliable tractor trailers, our semis that carry their diesel, doing everything and running it into distribution centers. Mm-hmm. And the distribution centers then are taking these electric vehicles and then distributing it through the town. That would give our long haul drivers the ability to keep their miles going because they're not then having to deliver in the town then because this electric vehicle is taking over and doing the job then. I just think that it's like I don't want to say a happy medium, but think of it that way. If they all take everything to distribution centers and the distribution centers then have the charging stations and stuff there for the equipment to take it into the towns and deliver into the towns, it's just everybody's happy then, wouldn't you think?
Honestly, I don't know. I do have another question though. Okay, so if they're wanting 1 out of 4 to 8 trucks to be electric, how do they like decide? Are they going to start making companies buy them? I mean, it's kind of weird to where they've got this rule where you've got to have X amount. So let's say you have 100,000 tractor trailers in the state of New York. I'm just using that as a number, right? So now they're saying let's say it's 1 out of 4, right? So now you're saying that if you have 100,000, right? 4 goes into 100,000. What? How many times? 40, right? Or no, I'm sorry. It would be 25% rather if it's 1 out of 4. So that means if you have 100,000 trucks, that means 25,000 now have to be electric, or they are not allowed to sell more diesel trucks, and they got to get this permit.
They're not allowed to sell them, or they're not allowed to purchase them?
No, he said the dealers aren't allowed to sell them unless they have X amount of electric trucks sold. Now, look, I will say just to tell you, and that's just food for thought, okay, how they're going to decide that. But food for thought, and they, at the bottom of this article, they ended up talking to the people that set the rules back in 2021 for 2025 to be here, which obviously they're not even close because everybody's running from them because they just don't have them ready and desirable to buy yet. So they said, now we're going to kick the can down to 2029. So basically another 3-4 years they're giving them to come up with this number. And unless you get a unless you get a semi truck to where it can equal a diesel truck in range, you're inviting more inflation and all other good stuff. So, it remains to be seen, and we will see down the road if, semi trucks get better. And that's the only way I see them even coming close to meeting their demands right there. Moving on. You got something else you want to say?
Just a quick thing.
Go ahead.
So here's the other thing that goes, they're hand in hand with that, is the charging stations. So until they have the charging stations available, they can't expect people to purchase them.
What?
So
True.
So if there's no charging stations right now going, especially like we're using New York as the example, if there's nothing going through the throughway, if there's no charging stations there, they can't sit there and expect these laws to be upheld if they have no other means.
Well, that's probably why you're probably exactly right. In fact, it wasn't that they're being nice, because in the article, like, look, we can adjust things. We want to work with people, but you have really no choice. Like you're saying, if there's no charging stations.
So once we start seeing all these charging stations, that's when we should start getting more.
I'm just
concerned that it's going to start being upheld.
I would tell you, just me personally, I really believe that they need to make these rigs way better. You cannot expect a trucking company to get minimal hours, and then not only make it better in that respect, but you also have to figure out a way to charge them quicker.
Yeah, the driver can't. The FMCSA already restricted drivers so much on having to take their 10 hours and going over hours and their private hours, all that different stuff. I mean, they've restricted them so much. How are they going to take away more hours from them for charging their vehicle? I mean,
yeah,
you don't get paid to charge a vehicle.
Well, they'll have to start. Let's move on. I don't want to beat the horse. The dead horse. Where the heck did they come up with that? Oh, you know what it is? It's like, I guess in the old West, when your horse was like, they would beat him, and then when he finally died, right, you can't beat him to get him going anymore, So
it's not a good saying, I don't think.
This article's a dead horse. Okay, listen to this. This is a survey, an interesting survey. Parking once again ranks as top critical issue for trucker survey. Now, got a bunch of surveys. It says truckers once again have ranked truck parking as the number one issue they face in the course of doing their jobs, according to a new survey released over the weekend. However, the American Transportation Research Institute's annual critical issues in trucking survey found that carriers ranked the economy. So they surveyed truckers, and their number one thing, and these were just so you know, it's company drivers that said their number one issue is truck parking. Okay, which to me, if they surveyed me, it would always be pay. I'm just saying, okay. But anyways, it says the survey that the carriers said number one for them was the economy is their number one concern. The economy was always the top issue when all responses were ranked. It says, so here's the truckers' complete list of top 10 critical issues. Now, this is the trucker survey. Number one, of course, is parking. Number two is driver compensation. Okay. And so, parking has really gotten crappy. That's why I like Truck Parking Club and all those guys that are really trying to pitch in and get, owners of landowners involved in doing this. And you already know my solution is counties and towns and boroughs and states should all be responsible for providing this to the trucking industry if they want freight delivered to their areas. I really believe that. Instead, you've got places like New York City that are doing what? Punishing guys if they idle in January at 5 degrees in New York City, punishing them by giving them a big fine. Makes me sick. So number two is driver compensation. Number three, truckers said the economy. Okay, which is, everybody knows the economy's in the dumps. I mean, it's just horrible right now. Freight's down. Broker freight is dead. Number four is detention, delay at customer facilities. So the number four issue with a lot of truckers is, and we've talked to truckers a lot over the years, and they hate to sit. When you pull in somewhere and you have an 8 o'clock appointment and then they don't get, you know what I mean? Like how many times when I was a driver, I have an 8 a.m. or a 5 a.m. and I'm not unloaded till noon. You know what I mean? And then you got to beg to get detention pay. And the detention pay really sucked anyways. You know what I mean? And you're running out of hours. You're getting screwed up. If you're not loaded by a certain time, now you're laid over. Layover pay is never good. You know, what is a layover pay with trucking companies these days? $100, $150 a day. I mean, a trucker really needs to make, honestly, he needs to gross a minimum of $300 a day. And that means if you're running 5-6 days a week, that means, you know what I mean? A trucker needs to make anywhere from, I would tell you, honestly, $1,700 to $2,000 as a gross if they're W-2, and then until they get their taxes taken out. This is what the average truckers are making these days that are running good and bringing home. They want to bring home anywhere from $1,300 to $1,700 clear is really what they're needing to do in a W-2. And then, of course, they're getting benefits and blah, blah, blah. So detention pay and drivers being held up is really screwing up drivers. And I know there's drivers going, oh, Troy, well, I'll make a lot more than that. Well, if you're making a lot more than that in this dead economy, you better not tell anybody, because truckers are going to start coming there and wanting your damn job. I'm going to tell you that right now. Because I know a lot of drivers, and I've talked to them and surveyed them myself lately, and a lot of them that are running for a lot of those Chicago companies doing lease purchases, those guys are like, I'm getting $300. I haven't gotten a paycheck in 3 weeks. And so those guys are just dying by the vine. And then, of course, number 5 is speed limiters. Yeah, my thing went again. Wow. I think what it is I think the gimbal wasn't charged right. Hello, gimbal. So anyways, so speed limiters is number 5. Speed limiters is number 5. And of course, you know, they're worried that, you know, this has been an issue, that they're trying to take trucks down to most likely 65 miles an hour. And that would include owner operators, everybody. You're all going to be held to the same number, which would really chase a lot of guys out of the industry. Broker issues. Everybody, you know, first off, they hate brokers. They have to deal with brokers, and brokers don't have the freight for them anyways. Number 7, the ELD mandate. You know, with everything going on, you know, truckers being controlled by electronic devices. They literally hate that. It kills them. Number 8 is fuel prices. Number 9 is autonomous trucks. A lot of truckers, when surveyed, they are afraid that the autonomous industry is coming to take their job.
No, I would understand their fears.
I mean, and I don't see it happening over the next couple of years, but it is slowly. You're starting to see driverless trucks in other states. And number 10 would be driver training standards. And I was thinking that at first, you know, when I didn't have much training at first when I was a kid, but truthfully, I did have my grandfather that mentored me.
I think the ones that have been driving with in their family for years and then going into the industry definitely have a better sense of the industry than anybody that's just coming in and going to school.
Well, I would tell you this. There are some good driving schools. 160 Driving Academy. What's the big one? Roadmasters is another big one. You know, there's some really good programs out there. There really is. But then there are also a lot of shady programs. And, you know, I've seen a video recently where a guy was literally in a cornfield with his tractor trailer, and he couldn't speak English. And the DOT guy was right there, and he's just going GPS. And so there was another video I seen. Literally watched this guy did not know how to unhook his tractor and trailer. And some old school driver was, at a truck stop, was showing the guy how you drop a trailer and you hook to another one. And this guy was at a truck stop showing this new driver. This guy was just new in the industry, and the schools obviously didn't teach them basics. So, you know, this is the 10th issue on the list of truckers. If you are a trucking school, you ought to be ashamed of yourself if you're not teaching these guys the basics, you know, how to follow directions. And to be honest with you, if a driver can't speak English, you ought to be ashamed of yourself giving him a CDL. And the United States of America, okay, the politicians, and I'm not saying which politicians, because I'm not going to beat up any
We're not
side.
political.
We're not going to be political on the show, but for some reason, you've got these guys that can't speak English, and they're somehow getting a CDL. in the United States, and they're driving tractor trailers. They can't speak the damn language, and therefore they don't even understand half of what's supposed to go on. Now, I'm not saying that they don't know how to drive a tractor trailer, but there's more to it than just driving. So yes, I agree with number 10. The training standards needs to be brought upward, and number 1 would be you should have to speak the language, since 99% of the language spoken here is English. Number 2. Okay, you should know the basics, how to unhook a truck. You know what I mean? How to read an atlas instead of going by a GPS, because any dumbass that turns right and goes into a cornfield because your GPS was showing you to go that way, honestly and truly, you should have every one of your licenses revoked for even thinking of following that. And that doesn't go for just guys that can't speak English, because there's a lot of goofballs, all right, that have gone a little bit wacky, that are fully American-speaking drivers that have followed their GPS into the most stupid areas when you can clearly see with your own. How about a couple years ago, that dumbass that was driving for CRST, he drove onto the boardwalk in Atlantic City. Okay, and he was an English-speaking guy. He just drove somehow. I don't even know how he got his damn truck onto the boardwalk, but he was driving down the boardwalk where you're supposed to only be walking, all right, in Atlantic City. And, of course, he blamed his GPS. And then there was that guy on Daytona Beach that drove his tractor trailer onto the beach and got stuck almost in the ocean, and his truck was sunk and had to be towed out. Mm-hmm. I mean, guys, honestly, that should be like... Duh 101. Duh. How about class? There should be a class in trucking school called Duh 101. Duh 101. 101. Whatever you want to call it, it should be Dodo 101. And when the teacher stands up, he should go, all right, I shouldn't have to be telling you guys this, but don't drive into the ocean with your tractor trailer if a machine tells you to. Don't drive on the boardwalk. If the machine tells you to do so, don't do it. You have permission to ignore the GPS if it tells you to go into a cornfield. And I'm just saying that's what drivers are talking about when they talk about bad training. Mm-hmm. Only an idiot would actually do some of the things that some of these drivers are doing.
It's ridiculous. What would they have done if it said turn left or right and it was a person's house right there?
Do you remember that old saying? Would you remember, like, if you did something dumb,
would you jump off the bridge?
Exactly. Like if you blamed your friend Bob. Well, Bob did it. Oh yeah. Well, if Bob jumped off a bridge, would you jump off a bridge? Like, we always blamed our friend, right?
Right.
And then our parents would be like, would you jump off a bridge? Yeah. Well, guys, if the GPS told you to drive off the bridge, would you drive off the bridge? Come on, guys. Grow up. Oh my gosh, Ruth-Ann. I'm sorry, serious. Okay, so the carrier list, all right, their critical issues, we already know. Number 1, if you're a trucking company, you voted for the economies. You're number 1.
Right.
Number 2 was lawsuit abuse reform, which would be huge for trucking companies, like getting sued all the time. Driver shortage would be number 3. Mm-hmm. Okay, insurance cost. And that's another thing. You insurance companies should be ashamed of yourself.
That goes with 1, too. I mean, or is it number 2? Number 2 with the fraud. So, I mean, you kind of have...
I'm just saying, like, honestly, it's... You know that the number 1, 2, and 3 costs in trucking is fuel, okay, workers' compensation claims, which would be driver lawsuits and... all that other good stuff. And then obviously the insurance companies itself, when you have to pay for just the amount of insurance you have to pay. Okay. Number 5 would be driver retention is one of their concerns. And let's be honest, driver retention falls a lot on the trucking company. If you can't provide freight, if you can't provide a decent wage for these guys, then you're not going to retain your drivers, okay? Mm-hmm. And also, if you aren't treating them with respect and getting them home when you're supposed to, you aren't going to keep your drivers. Listen to your drivers, especially on your surveys when the exit interviews. If you're not doing exit interviews on your drivers, I would do that and learn why they're leaving, okay, and listen to it. Number 6 was the FMCSA compliance, safety, and accountability. Number 7 on trucking companies said truck parking. So my big thing is this. A lot of drivers are having to pay for parking a lot now in truck stops and that. I think that would be a great incentive for trucking companies. Hey, work out a deal with the truck stop. You have fuel and stuff worked out with these guys. Work out a deal where you got 5 reserved truck parking places, right, Ruthann?
Well, that or invest in a acreage or so of property, a couple acres of property to park tractors on.
Yeah, and
put tractors on there and you charge people.
Well, again, that's pretty costly to park. But you know what? Where you have a majority of your loads going, you might want to invest in some property. Number 8 would be battery electric vehicles. So what were we just talking about,
there
right?
You go.
So trucking companies, their concern is these battery electric vehicles that the government's trying to shove down everybody's throat would be, what's the future of these things? Nobody really knows what the future is. Number 9 would be driver distraction. And, I would think that would be higher on the list because that's going to come with a lot of lawsuit abuse. And driver distraction is the 99.9% reason why a preventable accident happens. And then number 10 would be, listen to this, number 10, trucking companies said diesel technician shortage. And I was talking to somebody the other day and I was telling them, listen, a good diesel mechanic for your shop is 10 times, probably 1,000 times harder to find than a good truck driver. I'm serious. They are not easy to find. And then I started looking into their wages and they're paid okay amounts. But to be honest with you, you guys could come up on the pay on these guys. I've seen trucking companies. I was talking to a trucking company recently in Minnesota. They've got about 100 trucks. And one of their big issues was they have available trucks, but they can't get them out of the shop because they don't have the technicians to work on them. You know what I mean? Like they got little issues they have that they need repairs. And a good mechanic is, man, that's like a bar of gold these days trying to find I'm going to tell you guys out there that are listening in that are not truckers, that are looking into different careers, diesel mechanic is a big one. Mm-hmm. It's big. You might want to look into electric mechanics. You know what I mean? Maybe take a course on diesel mechanic, but who's going to be the ones repairing the electric trucks also? Ruthann, we also had, go ahead, you had something?
The electric ones shouldn't break down. There's nothing mechanical in them, really, right? Just the battery.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I'm sure there's, technicians, they're going to need for that also.
Wiring.
What's that?
The wiring, like wiring and stuff.
So it said also motor carrier enforcement personnel, which would be DOT, I guess, also weighed in on the survey, and they had 5 critical issues, that the motor carrier enforcement departments. Driver distraction was their number 1 because, they're concerned. Uh-huh. Number 2 is hours of service. You got to hear number 5. Number 3 is FMCSA's compliance, safety, and accountability. Number 4 would be driver training standards. And number 5, marijuana legislation.
Oh.
Well, with all the weed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And look at Florida. They're about to vote on Florida now. For it's always been medical marijuana here, but now they're going to be voting on, hey, if you can go down to 7-Eleven, get a Slurpee and a joint, it's going to be what they call recreation, and they'll be voting on that here in Florida this year. And I would imagine there's a lot of states that are going to go ahead and give the thumbs up. I'll tell you what, though, the legal weed has really hurt the trucking industry. These truck drivers, a lot of them don't understand that federal overrides any state law that says, hey, you can sit in your house and smoke weed now, get high and just chill out. We're becoming like a really stoned nation, all right?
We're the laughers. They laugh at us.
Yeah, man. I mean, honestly, it is what it is. But you look at it right now, okay, and what truckers, and a lot of them, like, I've talked to them, they're like, well, it's legal. No, it's not. Not in a tractor trailer.
Nope.
It doesn't. You cannot go home where it's legal for you to smoke weed, okay, and literally think you're okay to smoke it because odds are when you get a test, you're going to fail it. And now you are in the SAP program. We're just about in November where all those drivers are about to be downgraded. And that's another story. But that is pretty much the podcast for the week, Ruth Ann. Do you have the word of the day from Word Genius?
From Word Genius.
They make us smarter. Well, they at least make you smarter. I don't know that I'm getting smarter.
There's the practice.
Yeah, well,
Practice.
I mean, it is what it is. But what do you got for Word Genius?
Coruscate.
Coruscate?
Coruscate.
Never heard that one before.
Neither have I.
Okay. What is
one,
it?
and it's spelled Coruscate.
Okay.
Of light, flash, or sparkle.
Of light, flash, or sparkle.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Like a sparkler, fireworks. Those are coruscates.
Crazy.
So it's the sun coruscated across the many glimmering surfaces of the crashing waves. Mark had lit candles before we arrived. We could see them coruscating in the window from the street. It comes, actually, I didn't notice, but I was going down looking at more of it, and it says it's from the Latin word coruscate, meaning glitter, to glitter. So there you go.
But then we're out of here.
Peace.
Peace. Praise the Lord.